A while ago, I made a video reviewing Badminton Anime, and at the time, there was only one Badminton anime to actually review, which was Hanebado. Now, I might have been a little harsh, but at the time, I thought that Hanebado was not a good representation of badminton. Hanebado is not a good representation of badminton itself. To me, it was more of a story about a high school girl who had emotional and family troubles, and there was badminton involved. But that anime really didn't resonate with me because I had different badminton experiences. I really liked the sport and didn't have any trauma with it, and I kind of just wished it was a Prince of Tennis but for badminton. Now, am I ever gonna get something like that? Probably not. I mean, it's such a good anime, it's a masterpiece, it's one of those ones that you just can't really replicate, right? But this season of anime, there is a new badminton anime. So now I actually have something to compare Hanebado to. Now the anime is called Rymans Club, and it's based around salarymen who also play badminton. Yeah, that's kind of strange at first if you think about it. However, if you actually know the national badminton system in Japan, it makes a lot of sense. Whether it's national players or just club players in Japan, they're also employees of companies they represent. So they're guaranteed lifetime employment after they retire from badminton, and they work with club sponsor companies, which usually include the major companies like Tonami, Unisys, Yonex, NTT, and they receive a monthly salary just like all other employees in the company, which makes it a little different from pros in other parts of the world. Now, of course, some people are more employee than badminton player, and some people are more badminton player than employee. It really depends on your ranking after the All Japan Championship tournament. Aww. So if you look at Japanese pro players, you'll see that they have different sponsorships on their jerseys. So maybe it is Unisys or maybe it is NTT. But you'll see different sponsorships depending on the players. Now that that's out of the way, we can go back to the actual anime. Now from the synopsis, Rymans Club is set in a badminton business group depicting the two different aspects of daily life as a salaryman, as well as growth and conflicts as players. The main character, Mikoto Shiratori, a prodigy badminton player who suffers from trauma following a loss at the Inter-High tournament, becomes a salaryman at the Sunlight Beverage Company and befriends Tatsuru Miyazumi, the best performing player and salesman in the team. Now, as I'm recording this video, there's only 6 episodes that have been released so far, and I did binge all of them just to check it out. And if I'm being completely honest with my expectations for a badminton anime, no, it doesn't necessarily measure up. But you really have to level with me because my expectations are something very similar to Prince of Tennis. And Prince of Tennis is not necessarily something that can be compared to a lot of other sports animes. With Rymans Club, I feel like it's set a lot more into realism and actually is a pretty interesting way of teaching people how the badminton system actually works in Japan. Not only that, but a lot of the episodes are very business related, so they even go over SWOT analysis and other sales tactics that they use in big business. And honestly, that's like so different from what I'm used to watching for sports animes, because so many sports animes are at the high school level instead of whatever happens after that. So as someone who isn't in high school anymore, I feel like I can relate a little more to the characters in this anime, as well as, you know, some of the business things because I was a business major, and then I can also relate to the badminton things because I still play badminton. Not at a professional level, but if you're watching this, you really just want to know, is this a good anime? And if you've watched my Hanebado video, maybe you're thinking, well, is this anime better than Hanebado? Well, it does have fairly high ratings so far, but does it really have the characteristics of a good sports anime? And by good sports anime, I'm talking about Prince of Tennis, or Haikyuu, or Kuroko no Basket. So some of the characteristics that I look for in a good sports anime include character growth, which is, you know, one of the things you can see with Ryoma in Prince of Tennis. You can see that with Hinata in Haikyuu. Just like, you know, usually the main characters have some character growth that enables them to play the sport at a higher level. Now, it may be a little too early to tell for the main character in Rymans Club, but there is growth. As someone who was just a star badminton player and now working in the sales department of an actual company, there are so many things that he has to learn and kind of figure out in order to also be a salesman while being a good badminton player. Next characteristic is stiff competition. And I think with this specific anime, it's a little bit harder to recognize a stiff competition just because the anime is a little more fast-paced. I think it's only going to be 12 or 14 episodes. But in my opinion, some of the antagonists or the competition per se don't necessarily have a strong image for me. And that's something very different from, let's say, Kuroko no Basket, where a lot of the rivals are also friends with the main character. So you memorize the rivals and the schools, and they all have some kind of like superpower almost. It's a lot more memorable. But I guess that's another example how this specific anime is a lot more into realism than more of the fantasy of sports. Next, I always look for physical or emotional barriers within the main character or any of the characters in general. In Haikyuu and Kuroko no Basket, there were a lot of barriers, you know, being short in Haikyuu and being only able to pass in Kuroko. Of course, there were a lot of things that would make them not do well in a sport traditionally. And with this, rewinding to the character growth, the main character usually grows in order to compensate for the weakness and becomes a star player, blah blah blah. Now with the main character here, of course there are also physical and emotional, mainly emotional, barriers that have him struggling during competition. Now personally, I'm not sure if it's necessarily comparable to a height problem or only being able to do one specific thing in the sport and really sucking at everything else. But I'm still waiting to see how the whole series turns out because, you know, we're only halfway through. And then finally, as I mentioned before, a lot of these animes are based in high school. This is the first sports anime I feel like that is not based in high school that I personally watched. So it's very interesting to see the differences with that. Now, if we're talking about badminton representation, I think that this is a better representation of badminton than Hanebado is. And a lot of people still really liked Hanebado because if you get over the part where the badminton isn't the main part of the series, then I feel like a lot of people like Hanebado for the characters, the character development, solving emotional problems and all that kind of stuff. But Rymans Club does a really good job in order to just showcase how the badminton system works in Japan, showcase the struggles of working for a company as well as balancing badminton at the same time. And graphically, I think the badminton scenes are just a little bit better than in Hanebado. If you're talking about which badminton anime is going to be more popular overall, I'm going to have to lean towards Hanebado just because there is a little more eye candy. But go check out Rymans Club if you haven't checked it out yet. I'm for sure gonna finish watching the whole series throughout the rest of, what is this, winter 2022 anime. And while it might not be my #1 favorite anime of this season, I still feel like it's a pretty good representation of badminton overall. And a good representation of being in the sales department of a Japanese company. That's all I have for you guys today. Make sure to like this video and also subscribe if you haven't. Also follow me on my other socials. I've been posting a lot more on Instagram Reels and TikTok, so if you don't see me here on the channel because I haven't posted in a little while, I'm usually on TikTok and Instagram, so make sure to check me out there, and I'll see you next time. Peace.